Hey students, so this video hopefully will help everyone develop their ideas for their satirical civilizations, which is our upcoming theater project. Just as Swift created his four satirical worlds to criticize the British monarchy's devouring of the poor, the Irish upper class's betrayal of their own people for wealth, and the useless scientists that create gadgets but not solutions, you're also going to create allegorical and satirical civilizations, and you will use these to criticize your assigned problem. If you can't remember what your assigned problem is, you can access Moodle, and everyone is listed with their groups and their assigned problem in today's Moodle folder. So now coming up with ways to satirize your problem can be really tricky, and there isn't a obvious and exact way to come up with the perfect satire. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at just 4 quick examples, and through these examples discuss different ways that you can approach satire. Hopefully this will help. You may already have some ideas of your own and you don't need this video, but if you are struggling a little, hopefully this video will help you. So let's take a look at our first image. So these examples that we're going to review are all paintings by the artist Powell Kaczynski. He completed an amazing series of paintings that satirize different flaws in our world civilizations. So when you look at these examples, we're going to discuss what is being satirized, how it's being satirized, and why it's being satirized. So here, Kaczynski is satirizing how the world moves from worshipping and overthrowing one dictator to the next, and how these leaders are ultimately the same. So look at how they look exactly the same. When one cruel leader is overthrown, another one simply replaces him and behaves in the same destructive manner. What is worse is that the people allow this. They perpetuate the problem by failing to find a better way. How this is done, how all this is communicated, is through this pinwheel contraption that has the classic dictator pose statue at the top. We've seen statues like this before in history classes about Russia and Italy. It's the classic pose. And these statues are being pulled down by this large celebrating crowd with all of their flags. And so they're pulling down the leaders, but by doing that, they're pulling up a new leader, and it happens over and over and over again. So here we're seeing caricature used, repetition used, dystopianism, and irony, and all of these are working together to criticize this process of overthrowing leaders and replacing them with those who are going to do the same exact thing. Therefore, the problem is the ongoing corruption of leadership. So say you were given this problem and asked to create a satirical civilization to, through allegory and satire, show how it's a problem. The resulting satirical civilization could be a world where this is actually occurring. People gather in this kind of magical place, and they have this ritual of whenever they're unhappy, they pull down the statue of the leader, and magically this image of a new leader appears, and they find the person with the same likeness and they make them their leader. It would be like a religious experience. What they don't realize is that over the centuries, they end up electing the same exact immortal criminals over and over again. So these immortal leaders kind of are in on the joke where they just keep taking over these kind of ignorant individuals over and over again. So that could be the kind of world that you develop. So the world is incredibly fantastical. It couldn't occur here. It uses magical elements, but each of these magical elements are allegorically representative of real life things and also use satirical tools to criticize the problem. So let's look at another example. So in this example, it's again criticizing politicians, but a different kind of politician, not a dictator, but someone more likely who works in a democratic system. So this image ridicules information that are provided by these politicians, and it does so through situational irony. We expect our leaders, our upstanding, well-dressed, kindly-looking leaders to say honest, inspiring, and intelligent ideas, but what we get instead is sewage. So here, the situational irony is taken literally, where politicians are actually producing sewage as they speak. In this satirical story, you could present this issue and then kind of elaborate upon as to how it becomes such a severe issue where there's so much sewage that they have nothing to do with, that they must forbid politicians from speaking, and they all must become mimes and communicate their ideas through hand signals and drawings. So it's the idea that you create kind of this fantastical element that's allegorical and satirical, and make sure that you're actually utilizing satirical terms that we've learned in class to make sure that you're not just creating an allegory, but actually a satire. You're going to want to make sure that that satire is there in your civilization. Let's look at another example. So this one is really different. It's not criticizing politicians or any form of political structure. It's criticizing technology. So in our image, it's even more fantastical than the ones we've seen so far. It's very fantastical in its use of satire. We have these giants who are attempting to paint on this image. We're not quite sure what this is. It might be a desert of some sort. But then this small little man comes by and chops down their paintbrushes like trees and replaces it with a mouse. So what this is literally ridiculing through satire is how the internet is deadening our creativity and artistic outlets. If we were going to turn this into a civilization, if we were going to take this problem and turn it into a civilization, all of the paintbrushes in the world that these giants have built could be destroyed by these little salesmen and their followers who want to subdue these giants by having them watch hours of Netflix movies. So the giants go home and they're fascinated by this magical thing called Netflix, and they just watch movie after movie. And while they're incapacitated by all of this technology, the little men finally have the kind of the cover that they need to take over this world that they didn't before have access to. And before the giants know it, they've been tied down to their couches and have no way to move, and the little men have taken over the world. So that is another example of a satirical and allegorical world that you could create to criticize a problem. So let's look at one final example. So this example is actually criticizing something very different, and it's criticizing and ridiculing our understanding of death. So not all people, but some people fear the inevitability of their death so much that they let it interfere with their active living. So in this satirical world that is meant to ridicule people's obsessions with death and how they let it kind of ruin them, in this satirical world, people could visit their own graves and watch clocks tick down to their death. So instead of going out and living, they spend their entire lives in this graveyard waiting to die. So it's pretty dark and dismal. It's very depressing, actually. But the satirical world kind of creates this impossible device that has allegorical representations for things that actually happen in our own real world. So these are 4 examples. Hopefully they've kind of given you some ideas where you can take problems, whether it's dictators or politicians or the internet or abstract concepts such as death, and turn them into allegories and satires. All right, so what you need to do now is think about your problem and come up with, count them, 3 different ways that you can create a civilization that uses both allegory and satire to ridicule the problem that you've been assigned. I look forward to seeing what you come up with tomorrow. Best of luck. Bye.